Welcome to the Sports Radio Ian Cameron Sports Report for Tuesday, November the 3rd. We have action getting underway this week in college football. MAC Attack, are you ready? I'm ready because I'm going to give you guys a MAC conference preview on the show today. We'll also look Pac-12 college football on the show as well today, getting you ready for the the final two conferences that will be getting their season going this week. I'm looking forward to that. So a little MAC and a little Pac-12 talk on the show today. But before we get to that, let's recap Monday Night Football last night, which proved to be actually a hell of a lot more of a entertaining and competitive football game than a lot of people thought between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New York Giants. Giants played well for the most part in that game, but as they've done so many times this season, they find a way to lose despite the effort, despite good moments in the game. Certainly some of those moments where their defense, which contained Tom Brady and the Buccaneers for a better part of the first half. I was impressed with the pressure they got on Tom Brady in the first half. The defensive front certainly blew up the line of scrimmage on more than one occasion against Tom Brady, and the coverage down the field for the New York Giants against some of those Bucs receivers was actually pretty steady for the most part. However, second half, you can only neutralize Tom Brady and the Buccaneers offense, I think, for so long, especially seeing what the Tampa Bay offense was able to do against Green Bay and Las Vegas, the two previous games that they won convincingly. And sure enough, Brady and the Bucs, they made some adjustments. They were able to get a few things going on offense. Mike Evans emerged in the second half. He was really kept under wraps pretty well by the Giants in the first half, but had a really strong second half. They ran the football a bit better. And of course, Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski as well stepped up to the forefront with some big catches in the second half for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, wearing down the New York Giants defense, which hung in there. But when you're seeing Daniel Jones and the offense stagnate and 3 and out and not be able to sustain vibes, eventually that's going to wear on you as a defense. And it kind of did last night for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That being said, I'll give Jones credit. You know, there it was, the game slipping away from the Giants down 23-15, and he finds a way to make a couple of big fourth down conversions to keep the drive alive and gets his team into the end zone with a couple of nice plays. You definitely, if you're a Giants fan, you saw things that you can say to yourself, you know what, Daniel Jones made some progress tonight. He did a lot of good things. Unfortunately, it comes down to a 2-point conversion attempt to try to tie the game and force overtime. The ball falls incomplete, and a potential pass interference call against Tampa Bay. They pick up the flag, and they rule no penalty on the play. The incompletion stands, and the Buccaneers hang on for the victory against the New York Giants, 25-23 last night. If you had the New York Giants, you had to sweat a little bit toward the end. You're always worried, especially with the New York Giants getting the ball back down 8. You know, you're worried about that Daniel Jones trying to force things, make something happen, pick 6. That maybe just gives you one hell of a bad beat, but that did not happen. Other than that one little moment and that drive where you got a little nervous. If you backed the Giants last night, you were pretty much in control and fully deserving of cashing that ticket, obviously. A wire-to-wire point spread cover last night for the New York Giants as home underdogs. Definitely, I think Tampa Bay, they'll never admit it, but maybe a little guilty of not putting as much stock in the Giant game with the big New Orleans Saints game coming up Sunday night, NFC South showdown. But that's sometimes what good teams do. When you don't play your best game, you still find a way to win. And that's exactly what we saw from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last night, is the escape with a victory against the New York Giants. Brutal beat if you had the under. It's another reason why, and I said this on Twitter, it's like pulling teeth now at this rate for me to bet an under in the National Football League. I mean, that game was sailing under for nearly 3 quarters, and then you have this fourth quarter scoring onslaught, including the touchdown in the final minute for the Giants that sends the game over the total. Real tough beat if you had the under, as the game was definitely on pace for the first 3 quarters to be an under, and then it ends up getting blown up like so many unders do in the fourth quarter. So many NFL unders anyway. In the fourth quarter, it comes undone, and the game ends up going over total. All right, it's college football preview time. We've got MACtion, and it's the spotlight in the sports world on Wednesday night. Wednesday night, there's no baseball. It's over. Hockey's over. Basketball is over. And the only college football tomorrow night is going to be MAC conference play getting underway. So let's give you a MAC preview. We're going to do it game by game with the games taking place tomorrow night. Let's start with Ball State Cardinals, Miami, Ohio Redhawks. We've got Miami 2.5-point favorites. Actually, it's mostly 2 now, with Miami as home favorites. The total 55 in this game. If you remember last year, Chuck Martin's Miami team, MAC champions. And I don't know about you guys and how much you watched the MAC last year. I did. It's a conference that I do follow and keep up with, try to watch it when I can. Whenever I watched the Miami, Ohio Redhawks last year, I looked at that team and I said, how the hell did that team win the MAC? Like, there was nothing based on the eye test that was overly impressive. I thought their defense was okay. I thought their offense was decent, but not like the some other teams in the MAC that had some really explosive offenses last year, namely Toledo, Buffalo, Western Michigan, Central Michigan, Ohio. Some of the teams you think of as having really good offenses in this conference. I never got that idea that Miami was a great offense, but you got to give Brett Gabbert credit, the quarterback here. This Miami Ohio team did a pretty solid job, for the most part. The question is he going to be able to carry it over this year? There's questions about Miami. They were only 8-5 straight up, even though they won the MAC conference and the MAC conference title against Central Michigan in the conference title game last year. And there's some problems that I worry about them a little bit offensively coming into this season. He's one of those quarterbacks that, he had only look at his touchdown to interception ratio. That's what stands out to me about Brett Gabbert last year for Miami. I mean, he won freshman of the year, but 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 11-8 touchdown to interception ratio. Think about that. Does that look like freshman of the year caliber numbers? I'm not so sure about that. By the way, this running back situation for Miami is dire going into this season opener. Jalen Bester, Tyree Elton, down their top 2 running backs, it looks like. That's a concern. They are pretty good at the receive core. Bad offensive line last year. They bring back some of that talent last year, so they'd be better, but they definitely struggled in pass protection a little bit last year for Gabbert. The defense, I think, was definitely the unit that was a little bit more consistent game to game last year for Miami than the offense, but their defensive line didn't get a great pass rush last year, nor did they stop the run particularly well. And that's going to be a problem, I think, a little bit for them going into this season. They do have a good secondary, but to me, when I look at this Miami team, they won a lot of close games. Their statistical profile last year doesn't jump off the page at you as a team like, wow, they really impressed here. These were dominant MAC champions. I don't see that out of Miami. I think the arrow's pointing down on them this year coming into the season. I don't think they're going to be as good. I think there's a lot to like about Ball State coming into the season. Drew Plitt, senior quarterback. In fact, he is one of 17 seniors. No, not 17 returning starters, 17 seniors are back on this Ball State team. They are a very experienced team. They're going to have a very good offense. The offensive line looks good. Again, they have a Drew Plitt at quarterback. They have another senior running back and senior wide receiver leading them. They've got a very experienced and loaded offensive line. This is offense that we can project is probably going to be pretty good. I think they're going to be an upper echelon offense in the MAC this year. Be able to move the football. Their defense, which was their sore spot last year, they lost a lot of games because they couldn't get stops. 7 starters back on the defensive side of the football this year for Ball State. I think the arrow's pointing up on. They were 5-7 straight up last year. So many of those games, though, that they could have won. A play here, a stop there on defense, maybe a play, an extra play or two that you make on offense could have maybe shifted some of those 7 losses that Ball State had last year and turned them in wins instead. There was a competitive team. They weren't blown out very routinely last year in the MAC, and I do think they're going to be a better football team. In fact, I think they're going to be potentially contending, on this side of the MAC, this Ball State team. I think they're going to be a team that's definitely in the mix. And in terms of this opening game with Ball State and Miami, it wouldn't surprise me to see Ball State emerge the victor here. I'm interested in Ball State at the slight road underdog price. Eastern Michigan and State. Kent State 4.5, 5-point favorites. 63.5, 60.5 the total in this game. Certainly when you look at it from Eastern Michigan, look, if you've been following this team under Chris Creighton, the head coach, this is the point spread rule I always want to back Eastern Michigan in. They've been a great underdog. I don't like laying points with EMU, but you get them in the underdog, that's where you can make your money with this Eastern Michigan team. Now, the concern going into this season is there are definitely pieces that have to be replaced for Eastern Michigan. No question about that. Mike Glass, outstanding quarterback, for Eastern Michigan. But they're very high on Preston Hutchinson, who's going to take over at the starting quarterback spot here for the Eagles. It's definitely a quarterback that they've been very complimentary of in practices and camp leading up to this season. It's going to be a team that I think is going to have a lot of pretty good receiving core. They do have a new offensive coordinator because it's in fact going to be Creighton, the head coach of the team, that's going to take over play calling duties. The running back core got hit a little bit in terms of a depletion, in terms of talent, but the offensive line certainly in flux a little bit. They've got two really good players returning, but they've got some other guys that they've got to replace. So that's always a concern here. The defense, it was not great up front for them last year. I think the secondary, though, has a chance to be good. So that to me is a positive for Eastern Michigan coming into this season. As far as Kent State is concerned, it's a team that obviously had a really, really tough season last year. But they did end up coming on strong overall down the stretch. Remember, Kent had to win out at the end of the season to get a bowl game. They did that, and then they were able to get the victory against Utah State in their bowl game. So they finished the season strong. Dustin Crum returns at quarterback. It'll be interesting to see how he fares coming into the season. They weren't able to run the football really all that well. The defensive line was just pushed around last. Remember, this Kent State defense, especially for half, if not 3/4 of the season, was just absolutely god-awful, atrocious, couldn't stop the run, just a ton of issues. And the secondary, which was okay last season, well, they've suffered a lot of graduation losses coming into this season. So that defense's ability to get stops is a concern for me. You combine Eastern Michigan, even though they've got a little bit of a revamped offense and a new quarterback, I always say I don't want to lay points with the defense I don't trust to get stops, and I'm not sure I trust Kent State's defense still to get stops. And I'm not yet sure, without seeing a game with my own two eyes yet, just how much better they're going to be on defense at all, to be honest with you. I like Crum, and the offense has some potential for Kent State. I can see why this total is where it is, 62.5 up to 63.5. There's some over money coming in. I would lean over the total, but I also think Eastern Michigan's worth a bet here. I like them in the underdog role, and I don't have enough confidence yet in Kent State defensively to lay points with them. It would be Eastern Michigan plus the points and lean over the total for me in this game. Western Michigan and Akron. Western Michigan, 18-point favorites, 54 the total. When it comes to these two teams, Western Michigan, Akron, they have just been, it's unbelievable how bad Akron has been in terms of covering point spreads, considering they're already, a team that, let's be honest, a team that's already power rated by odds makers as one of the worst teams in the country, one of the worst FBS teams in college football. Let's not forget they didn't win a single game last year. They started the season 0-10 against the spread before they finally covered a damn point spread for the first time last season. Just an incredibly bad offense. They could not move the ball. They could not put points up on the board. And they averaged 10.5 points per game last year. That's just absolutely hideous. They couldn't run the ball. They've got an issue with their offensive line was bad last year. And now you're going to have to replace a bunch of those starters from last year. Now, you could say the starters sucked last year. What's the harm in losing them? But you got to start over again with already a team that lacks quarterback play, that lacks an ability to have that skill position talent to make plays. Now you've got to deal with some changing in personnel on the offensive line as well. It's just difficult to project leaps, bounds improvement, to be honest with you, here in this Akron team. the problem is, and they should be better, at least a little. They can't be worse. They can only be better. But how much better is that going to be? Because Western Michigan, they're very good in terms of their offensive line. And I'll tell you what, the Akron defense just could not get a pass rush, getting blown off the football with the opposing team's ground attack consistently, in and game out. I'm not sure that's going to change here going into this season here for Akron. And to me, you could look at it and say, but wait a second, a senior quarterback here, Cato Nelson returning. I've seen Cato Nelson now for years. I mean, I feel he's never going to graduate here from this Zips program with how long he's been there. I have not seen him progress. I really haven't. I have not seen him take the next step as the quarterback of this team. And that concerns me a little bit here. So you got a defense that could get pushed around. You've got Cato Nelson. Yeah, you could say he should be better with experience, but there's a bunch of these quarterbacks that you see them, and they're seniors, and you think, oh, you know what? They should be better, even though they haven't been so far, and they still don't get better when they're a senior. There are countless examples I've seen of that. Logan Thomas, did he ever get better when he was a quarterback years ago at Virginia Tech? Did he ever get better? No, he did not. So you got to be careful. Oh, he's a senior now. He's got to be better. Well, sometimes you just don't improve. Sometimes you're just not good enough to improve. And I worry that's what we're maybe seeing here from Cato Nelson here at Akron. Michigan, you can usually count on them to put up points. They probably should in this game. But I don't know if I want to lay 18 on the road, first game of the season. I'm not interested in the. This is the game definitely I want to stay far away from in terms of from a betting standpoint. Akron's going to have to show that the betting markets have power rated them so low that now there's value, because they were supposed to be a team with value last year. When you're 0-12 straight up, you're supposed to cover some numbers, because you're supposed to be just power rated so low in everybody's mind that you just cover some numbers even by accident. And even then, Akron couldn't cover point spreads last year. So I'm going to need to see it from this group. Bowling Green, Toledo. We've got Toledo 22-point favorite, 62 the total in this game. I think there'll be points. I do think the over's in play here. Toledo should have one of the best offenses in the MAC, as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot to like with them in terms of this offense. Eli Peters back as the starting quarterback. Jason Candle hasn't announced he's going to be the starter, but I'd be shocked if it's not. Considering he's 10 starts he's made, he's the most experienced Toledo quarterback they have, the current roster. It should be him, even though he hasn't been announced. I'm expecting it to be him. Bowling Green, there's definitely a team that actually offensively at times last year wasn't terrible, but again, it's another team that lacking significantly on the defensive side of the football for this team here. Now I'm blanking on them. On Bowling Green, the Falcons. But they were just not very good in terms of the defensive side of the football. That's definitely a concern going into this season as well. And it'll be interesting to see if they are able to get any sort of improvement from their defense going into this season, because that was certainly a bit of a problem area. It'll be interesting to see. 4 of the top 6 the tacklers last year on this team, though, gone. The secondary shredded. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, and unfortunately for Bowling Green, when you had such a hideous defense last year, you'd like to be able to maybe ease into the season and be one of the weaker offenses in this conference in your first game, and instead you get Toledo. Good luck with that. So, Toledo's taken a lot of money. They could probably score on close to, if not every possession in this game with their offense. They got a good O-line, good skill position talent, good quarterback, and Eli Peters, a Civ defense. At least last year they were. Bowling Green on the other side. So I can understand why Toledo's taking money. I don't love laying this many points in the first game of the season, but I understand why people are doing it and are skeptical of Bowling Green, especially that defense, which I think, over under punts 0.5. Maybe you still bet it under, because I don't know how many stops, if any, they're going to get against Toledo. But I do think Bowling Green can move the ball a little bit. Scott Loeffler, I think he's got some offensive creativity in his mind. He's got that capability to, scheme an offense. Let's see if he can do it here with Bowling Green. And Bowling Green, at least at times last year, was able to move the football. And Toledo, definitely in terms of offense versus defense, The offense is the stronger unit, the strength of the team. I think they're a little bit weaker on defense. That's why I veer more toward the total than the side in this game. I think Bowling Green, Toledo can get up and over that total of 62.5. Buffalo, Northern Illinois. Buffalo 13-point road favorites. They've taken money here, 52 the total. You're not going to recognize Northern Illinois this season because we usually think of them as one of the better teams in the MAC. They sure don't look it on paper coming in this season. This already showed signs last year of maybe being a program that's actually going to go through some pains and be rebuilding a little bit here in the MAC. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see from Northern Illinois' defense. And last year, their defense, by the way, it was declined significantly, and they don't have a whole lot of returning experience coming back on that defense from last year. Their defensive line, they've got to replace a couple of key starters. The secondary lost a lot as well. This defense, which was already declining and on the downward trajectory last year, and now it could be even in for a world of hurt coming into this season here. And again, it's kind of like with Bowling Green, Toledo, a rebuilding defense here in Northern Illinois. And unfortunately, you get a Buffalo team that could have one of the better offenses in the MAC. Kyle Van Treese is going to be back as the quarterback. There were times he looked not great last year, but for the most part, I think he's a capable quarterback. He's going to probably be better. And he did have a lot of really good games last year. Consistency was an issue, but that's the difference with, say, him and some of the other quarterbacks, I just talked about. Cato Nelson, I talked about a minute ago with Akron. You just haven't seen him at all get better. At least with Kyle Van Treese, you saw him play a lot of good games. Yeah, he had a couple clunkers in there as well, but he still had a lot of good performances. Showed he could move the offense, and I think this offense is going to be quite good. I mean, they're going to rely on the run as well, and that's where they could really punish Northern Illinois, who, again, gutted defensively after last year when that defense was already on the decline last year, and now they've got even less experience back there, including on the defensive line. So Buffalo's ability to run the football, they should be able to do it here. Jarrett Patterson, an outstanding running back here for the Buffalo Bulls, should be able to have a field day here against Northern Illinois. Defensively, I agree with the move here. I mean, if I'm going to lay any kind of points here in these opening MAC games, I'm kind of interested in Buffalo. I think if you got 18.5 on Toledo, you probably got a good number there. I could even see Western Michigan blowing the doors off Akron. There are a couple favorites I lean to, but this is the one where I think it was worth a bet. Buffalo, even on the road here in DeKalb, Illinois, I think they can win this game by a couple touchdowns. And Ohio Central Michigan, the last of the MAC games kicking off on Wednesday night. Ohio Bobcats 2.5-point road favorites against Central Michigan, 57.5, 58 the total. David Moore was expected to be the starting quarterback here for Central, but the NCAA is hemming and hawing and dragging their feet on this violation ruling on him that is prohibiting him from playing and starting here in this first game. So as a result, he's not going to play David Moore. It'll be Daniel Richardson, the freshman, expected to get the opening game start here for Central Michigan against Ohio. And I think that's, we're seeing Ohio money here up to 2.5, 3. This is one line move that, I'm kind of interested in fading this line move. I like Jim McElwain. I think he's a good coach, especially in the conference. Proved it last year, took Central Michigan to the MAC championship game where they lost to Miami, but he took them there. They're a very good offensive team. I think the defense last year at times was spotty, I guess you could say, but I think there's a good chance that, they got a lot of returning talent defensively on that side of the ball coming into this season. I think is going to help this Central Michigan team make them a solid group, especially in terms of being able to get stopped on opposing teams. I think Central Michigan, the MAC West, when you look at the teams in that particular division, Central Michigan should be a contender still in the MAC West. Toledo certainly probably the favorite. But Central Michigan should be good. I think Western is still competitive. Ball State, as I mentioned, I think really could be the dark horse in this division as well. So I think they're still going to have a very good season. Ohio, they're going to be in the mix in the East Division of the MAC. They're there with Miami and Kent and Buffalo. I mean, I think throw those four teams in a a bucket, stir them around and pick out. Any one of them probably can win the MAC East, in my opinion. But I do think Ohio, certainly they lose Nathan Rourke at quarterback, but another Rourke in the mix to be the starting quarterback here. Frank Solich has been around forever now as head coach of this Ohio team, hasn't announced who his starter is going to be yet, but there's a chance that hopefully we'll find that out before the opening kickoff. But they're still up in the air who they're going to be. So it'll be interesting to see how Ohio does here. But again, I'm a little bit higher on Central Michigan than some people think. Numbers gone up to 3 here in this game. Central Michigan +3 is starting to show up at a couple books, including Pinnacle. I'm interested now in the Chippewas as a home underdog here in this game. I'm not buying Ohio. Changing quarterbacks, not the greatest Ohio defense last year, laying points on the road here in their opener against what I think is a very capable Central Michigan group. So I like the Chippewas there a little bit in that game. By the way, the Northern Illinois quarterback in the Buffalo Northern Illinois game, I forgot to mention this. It's Ross Bowers. He's a Cal transfer, and he was terrible at Cal. All right, awful. So unless he's going to be somewhat better, somewhat improved, maybe a step down in class now, you're in the MAC, you're not in the Pac-12, maybe you're going to find it easier, who knows, but you're still, in a new situation here. Ross Bowers here with Northern Illinois. I didn't see anything out of Cal that made me think, oh, that's a bet on quarterback right there. So that's another thing that concerns me about Northern Illinois and why I kind of lean to Buffalo laying big points. So that's the MAC. Quickly on the Pac-12, we're not going to go as in-depth into the Pac-12. Those games start on the weekend. There's still a lot of teams that haven't figured out who their quarterback's going to be yet either. UCLA, Colorado. UCLA will be improved this year. Colorado, the jury's out on them. So I think UCLA, to me, if I'm going to bet that game, I would look toward the road favorite. Arizona versus Utah. Utah looks like they may have Jake Bentley as their quarterback, the South Carolina transfer. Really never got on track there, but Utah, it's not like Tyler Huntley, who was their starter last year. It's not like he lit it up for them. So no harm, no foul trying to go with Jake Bentley. You're still going to get this typical Kyle Whittingham team, strong in the trenches. Arizona, the question is, how are they going to handle that? There's question marks about their starting quarterback. Their defense is still suspect. I've not liked the trajectory of this program overall. So that's a tricky one to bet, just because Utah's not necessarily the team I love laying 2 touchdowns with because of the style of play they have. Arizona State, USC. Trojans 10.5, 11-point favorites. This is the Fox game, big noon Fox game on Saturday. So that's a 9 a.m. Pacific start in Los Angeles at the Coliseum here for this game. But Arizona, they bring back the same quarterback they had last year. Keaton Slovis back as the quarterback for USC. Remember him. He took over the reins last year and was pretty good, in terms of the offense for this team. We know they've run up tempo offense now since they brought in Graham Harrell as the offensive coordinator. That more than anything, the total stands out to me. That game could go over the total, I think, Arizona State, USC. As far as the side goes, I lean a little bit to ASU, but I don't know if I feel as strongly about that. That game could have some points in it in my mind. Stanford, Oregon 10.5 point favorites, 50.5 the total. Stanford has covered each of the last 2 times they played in Eugene, and I think they won both of those games outright. I know Oregon, defensively, they're loaded. I mean, they've got so many players that are NFL bound going into this season that it's remarkable to see how loaded they are on the defensive side of the football. And they were an improving defense last year too. But of course, you lose Justin Herbert, who's now in the NFL with the LA Chargers and doing a hell of a job in the NFL, I might add. So they're turning to a new starting quarterback. The early returns on the potential starting quarterback here for the Oregon Ducks is that they feel good about him. They feel he can be a pretty good quarterback, Tyler Show. But the question, or Shao, depend. I'm not sure, but we'll see how he's able to fare here. They say he's got lots of talent, but always you worry about first game of the season. The concern for Oregon is their secondary took a huge hit in the offseason. A lot of their cornerback safeties in the secondary, I don't know why, it just happened to be that a lot of their opt-outs came from the secondary. So they're a little bit thin back there. And Stanford brings back Davis Mills, who, of course, took over a quarterback for them last year under David Shaw. And he was up and down. But now he's back. He's the best quarterback they have. He's certainly better than Jack West. I remember Jack West was in there for a bunch of games last year and just wasn't very consistent. Davis Mills, I think he has some upside. He may be able to pick on a little bit of a weak Oregon secondary here, assuming Stanford can protect. And that's the big question. Stanford's O-line, from what I've read, should be improved. I'm kind of interested taking Stanford here, points in this game. I think they got a chance to keep this game relatively competitive. For some reason, when these teams play each other, especially in Oregon, Stanford has really played well on this field against the Oregon Ducks. And it's not going to be that same amazing environment in Eugene you normally get. So because of lack of fans, but Stanford to me plus the points would be worth a look. Washington State, Oregon State, 1.5, 2-point favorites, 65.5 the total. I think Oregon State, believe it or not, is starting to get things. They're not anywhere near contender or upper echelon of the Pac-12 yet, but there's some things to like. They are going to have a new starting quarterback, but the Jamar Jefferson, the running back, is returning. The defense should at least be markedly better. Washington State, you're kind of starting over. New starting quarterback, Nick Rolovich taking over as head coach after Mike Leach went to Mississippi State. So it's a we'll see for Washington State here for me. I kind of lean Oregon State, but it would be a small bet if anything for me. It's certainly not a top play or anything, but I think Oregon State can probably find a way to win the game at home. That game might go over the total as well because Nick Rolovich is still going to be run and shoot. Offense more than defense kind of coach, just like Leach. And I think you're going to see more of that here at Washington State, Oregon State. Washington, Cal. We've got Cal 1.5, 2-point favorites, 43 the total. I love Justin Wilson, that coach there in Cal. I think he's done a good job. He's defensive minded. They've played pretty good defense, Cal, ever since he's been the coach of this program. Washington, to me, finally on the decline, in my opinion, this Washington Huskies program. That's definitely Jacob Sermon takes over as the new starting quarterback for them. Remember, they had Jacob Beeson last year, and of course, he got drafted into the NFL. So we'll have to wait and see how he goes. Chris Peterson, of course, back as we'll have to wait and see how it goes here in terms of Jacob Sermon at the quarterback spot. Question marks big time in terms of whether he's going to be able to get the job done. And defense slipped big time last year for Washington. Not the same defensive team. Cal is going to bring you that defense, and Cal's going to bring back. I'll say one thing about Cal. I gave their quarterback Chase Garbers a hard time when he didn't play. I thought there were so many games with Chase Garbers at quarterback where he looked awful, and I called him Chase Garbage. When he didn't do well. But then as the season went on last year, I saw a lot of improvement out of him. He played really good at times down the stretch for Cal at quarterback. And now he's back. He at least showed me that, hey, here's a guy that really wasn't playing well early in his career as a quarterback. And he got better, especially at the end of last season. And now he's back as the starter this year. And Devin Modster, who sometimes got some starting reps and opportunities with Cal, is back as well. So they've got two quarterbacks that have shown they can play. I like the improvement in Garbers toward the end of the last season. I'm thinking he can have a pretty good season. Crazy as it is to say, he could actually be maybe top 4 or 5 quarterback in the Pac-12 this year. I mean, he really did improve quite a bit down the stretch last year. Chase Garbers, keep it going this year for Cal. I think Cal's the side in that game. I would look to them to get the victory in that game against Washington, who I think lots of question marks for the Huskies coming into the season. They're not that upper tier Pac-12 team. They're not that shoe-in, at least, to be an upper tier Pac-12 team that they've been in years past. So there you go. There's MAC, there's Pac-12. Can't give you any more info than I just did on those two conferences. Hope you enjoyed it. That'll wrap it up for this edition of the Pub Sports Radio Ian Cameron Sports Report. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Before I sign off, you know what today is? It's Election Day in the United States. Obviously, we all have political beliefs. We all have our stances. And we have great conviction, all of us, with our political beliefs, myself included. But let me just say this about the results tonight. Regardless of who emerges, Joe Biden or Donald Trump, regardless, don't lose your heads. Don't do crazy shit. I don't want to see violence or looting or rioting in the streets or anything like this. Let's stay level-headed. And regardless of who wins this election, let's remember one important thing. Our lives will go on. We may not be in love with the candidate selected to win this election, and we may feel things may not be trending in the right direction from a political and from a Oval Office perspective. But regardless of that, our lives, our day-to-day lives in our own little bubbles here, they will continue. And at the end of the day, you've still got your careers, your families. That's where your focus should be. It's not worth it. It is not worth it to lose your minds over whatever result comes down tonight in the United States. Believe me, I've had to remind myself of that several times. No result can leave you just, apoplectic. Your day-to-day lives continue. Focus on your family, focus on your friends, focus on your career, focus on your livelihood. And again, keep your head regardless of the U.S. election results that end up coming in. Not just tonight, but we could be talking days or weeks here, possibly until a final result is concluded. So just a reminder, take it easy. Let's focus on our own lives and make sure, hey, we got day-to-day lives to live. As much as we sometimes get wrapped up in politics, it's not worth it to fly off the handle at anything that might go down in terms of results in the election tonight. That'll wrap it up, everyone. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. I appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow on Wednesday for another edition of the Pub Sports Radio Ian Cameron Sports Report. Have a great Tuesday night. We'll see you again tomorrow on Wednesday for another edition of the Ian Cameron Sports Report.